today I want to talk a little bit about Kamikoto. The title might be just a little bit clickbaity, I know. I want to talk about these knives. There's been a lot of commercials for them. A number of influencers have been pushing the Kamikoto knives. So what I want to do today is talk about whether or not Kamikoto is a scam, or if it is simply dramatically, ridiculously, overtly, shockingly overpriced. And so in order to do that, we have a Kamikoto knife right here. This is their Tuo Cleaver. And for an interesting comparison, I have this knife, which is a Tuo Cleaver. It is, the name they actually give it is the vegetable cleaver knife. Cleaver knife. So they kind of use two knife terms to talk about it. I'm very interested in both of these. And I'm a knife maker, so I actually tested these in some ways. Now, there's a big difference between these two knives. The Kamikoto goes for 233 United States dollars. And the Tuo, and I might be saying this wrong, the Tuo, this goes for $29.99. Now, this came in a so-so cardboard box, and the Kamikoto came in this Kamikoto box. And let me just say, and this is not hyperbole, I am not so sure that this Kamikoto box isn't worth more than this Kamikoto knife. This is actually a rather nice. If I was reviewing boxes, this is actually a really pretty nice box. But for, $233, it ought to be. But this box, in all reality, could potentially have cost more than the knife to make. Just saying. Maybe, maybe not. Moving right along. So, let's talk about the steels of these knives. This is, of course, Creeley blades, and I'm really interested in the steels that they're made of. In the case of the Kamikoto is made out of SUS 420J2. This is a steel that is relatively similar to like a 420HC. Sometimes people say it's like a 440A. It is a little different than those, but very similar characteristics. I did Rockwell test it, and I'll get out of focus for you. You see the little dot there. And in my sloppy writing, you can see I got 57 on that guy. The Tuo is made out of a German steel, DIN 1.4116. This steel would be very similar to AUS 6, which would be very similar to 440A. Kamikoto goes to great lengths to talk about their Japanese steel. And as I got to thinking about it, a Japanese steel, it's kind of like, let's talk about an American restaurant, right? So you could be talking about McDonald's, or you could be talking about Ruth Chris Steakhouse, right? So just to say it's an American restaurant doesn't really tell you anything. Similarly with Japanese steel, this is not a high-end Japanese steel. This is a relatively cheap entry-level steel, and so is this, quote, German steel, which they also mentioned in their listing. Now, in fairness to both of these steels, these are pretty good numbers. This number, Kamikoto actually says to expect 53 Rockwell plus or minus 2. So that means this could be 51 or 55. I had it at 57. So I would not be entirely surprised if that wasn't even that Japanese steel, but perhaps like an 8CR or something like that. Hard to say. I don't know. I didn't hit it with a spectrometer. I don't have one of those in my toolkit. But nonetheless, not a bad number for that particular steel. Also, a very good number for this steel. This is like top of the range for what this steel can accomplish. So the heat treating on these, at least in terms of hitting numbers, is pretty good. Now, let's do an initial sharpness test. I have not cut anything with these, and this is the certified best tester. Not best, but BESS. B-E-S-S. It's out of the camera shop there, B-E-S-S. All right, so we want to be able to see. Now, let's start out with the Amazon knife. All right, sharpness doesn't feel terrible. There we go. All right. So I got a 155 on this. Not terrible. Not terrible at all. All right, Kamikoto. Now let's try the Kamikoto. There we go. I try to go pretty slow with this to get as accurate a reading as possible. Oops. Zero that out. Ooh. That is not good. That's so bad, I'm going to give it another try. 420. 420. 420, not HC. 420, really bad. All right, one more time, guys. Let's try this again. Let me try on a different part of the blade. $185. So on this test, the Kamikoto is not as sharp. Not as sharp as this. So let's put the tester aside. So this one is sharper. The Amazon one is sharper than the Kamikoto. The steels, I would call them equivalent. One Rockwell hardness isn't enough to really, you know, the tester's not even that accurate. So let's look at the quality. So this is not bad quality. This is Paca wood, so this is a, you know, a natural material. And I will say that the Paca wood has shrunk. Now, in fairness to the manufacturer, I don't think that there's a little bit of a lip here now. I do not believe that would have been there when it came out of the factory. And considering the price, I'll give it a little pass. The machining on this, very similar to the Kamikoto. In fact, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if these weren't made in the same factory. Maybe not. I don't know that. The finishing is, you know, it's not bad. It's not bad. They rounded it off under here like you would want. This isn't, by the way, neither of these are knives that I would ever buy and use. I would use a more traditional chef's knife. But the Kamikotos, I wanted to find one cheap that was new. And somebody on eBay had a new one that was unused. This is unused. And so this was the blade that I could find like that. So that's why I got that one. I didn't want to spend, you know, $300 on one of their knives because I know that it's not worth it. Okay. Looking at the grind, not a terrible grind on this. One difference is this is chisel ground. Okay, this is chisel ground for a right-handed person. By the way, these chisel ground Kamikotos, if you're not right-handed, don't bother because they're not made for you. See, the wedge is on this side, so you hold the food with your left hand and you cut with your right, and the wedge, it falls the other way. I'm sure you could use it. It's just not ideal if you're a lefty. Sorry, Southpaw. Back to this guy. So the grind quality is decent. The initial sharpness is decent. Now, let me say, both of these knives are going to need some sharpening once you start using them, because they're not high edge retaining steels. These are sort of bottom of the barrel steels. Now, I want to take a closer look at the grind on this guy. Now, it's it's a little tall in my opinion, which is telling me this was left pretty thick behind the edge before they even started to sharpen it. I don't know how that's going to focus or not, but it was left pretty thick behind the edge. And look how wonky, I'll get you in focus here. Look how wonky it gets right there towards the tip, right there, kind of sweeps up a little bit. A blade like this is actually pretty easy to sharpen because it's just, that sort of surprised me. Now, also interestingly, the whole edge angle is on the bevel side. This side is just flat. I have been chisel grinding some knives. Here, I'll show you one. I'm glad you asked. I have been chisel grinding some knives myself, and I've decided to actually put a bevel on both sides. That's what Emerson Knives does, and it gets really tricky trying to take a burr off when you can't sharpen the backside. So I've kind of changed my way, but these guys put all the bevel on one side, 6 1/2 dozen in the other, maybe a preference, whatnot. So looking at these two knives, this knife has more of a belly. These aren't the exact same knives. Where this is, you would have a little more rocking motion with that than this. But in my opinion, they use, this looks like a G10 on here, so you're not going to have that shrinkage. I actually prefer G10. But in terms of cost of materials, those are pretty similar, just depending what you like. Just depending what you like. But these are very similar quality knives. If I had to say which one of these is the more expensive knife or the better knife, I'd be hard pressed to pick one over the other. Although in reality, one of them is $29.99, which is a very fair price. I'll put a link to it in the description just so you guys can have it. And the other one is $233. So is Kamikoto a scam? No. No, they're telling you what steel it is. They're telling you where it's made. They try to make it very Japanese, but it's really very Chinese. And for those of us in the knife world, there's a distinction there. And so I don't think they've lied to you about what they are. They do come in a very, very nice box. I mean, come on, guys. Look at this. Look at that. Look at that. They got some joinery going on there. Some traditional Japanese. Look at this wood. Look, we even have a little figure in there, a little chatoyance in that wood. I mean, this is a nice box. I tell you what, if the review was on the box that they came in, the Kamikoto wins all the way. But just as a practical matter, I could never recommend a knife like this for $200. There are many custom makers out there that would probably make you a knife like this in a much better steel for not much more than $233 if you find the right maker. Some would be a lot more. I'd probably be more, but nonetheless, I mean, you could find a custom maker out there and have it just the way you want it. For a Chinese production knife, this is an atrocious deal at $233. At $29.99, this is A-okay. I would not have one complaint. You could beat this, to death and, just keep sharpening it. And it'll be a great workhorse knife. There's nothing wrong with this knife at that price. So there you have it. Is Kamikoto a scam? Not really. They're just way overpriced. And, like almost 10 times more than they should be. So if you're thinking about Kamikoto or you wanted to get one of those, there's the truth of the matter from, somebody who makes knives in really high-end steel. That's not what this is. That's not what this is either, but it's priced accordingly. So I hope that helps you if you were thinking about getting one of those. And yeah, Look forward to seeing you on the next one.